And we are live.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Although there's nobody in here but you and I, but don't watch it back.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah, exactly. So today we are going to be discussing elements, polarities, modalities, and orientations. And this is something when I was learning very beginning about astrology, I had no friggin' idea the depth of these particular topics that we're talking about. So let me pull up the first thing. If you've been dealing with tarot, you know about the elements. You know about fire, earth, air, water. Now, like we had talked about on the wheel itself, as you go around the wheel, it's fire, earth, air, water, fire, earth, air, water, fire, earth. All of the signs, remember, starting from Aries. Aries is our first zodiac sign. So the first one we're going to be talking about then is fire. What are the characteristics? The good. Now, if you look at the sheet on the top, you see the little smiley face, right?
Yep.
Okay, because everything above the line, these are all the positive aspects of any particular sign. And you see the little sad face.
That's awesome.
Everything below the line is like the ill represented, or like the negative parts of when we're not in balance, or we're not aspecting these particular elements in a good light. So I'm going to start with the fire, and then sis, if you want to do the earth after that. So just quickly, these are some of the characteristics that you'll see for fire. And by the way, guys, this is week number 4, and I have sent you all 4 of these documents in your email already. So check your emails. So fire is associated with identity, whereas earth is associated with the material, air is mental, and water is feelings. So we've got under fire, we've got radiant, glowing, warm, flaming, energetic, creative, fervent, aspiring, spontaneous, passionate, daring, assertive, courageous, enterprising, self-confident, individualistic, independent, free, active, enthusiastic, exuberant, inspirational, rapturous, spirited, impassioned, and optimistic. So you already see, it's like painting a picture of what the fire signs are, right? And your fire signs are Sagittarius. Well, it starts with Aries, then Leo, then Sagittarius. Those are your 3 fire signs. The negative aspects can be hot-headed, impatient, impulsive, impetuous, excitable, uncontrollable, aggressive, pushy, violent, obnoxious. You get the idea, okay? So I'm not even going to finish those. Sissy, do you want to do the material, the earth?
All right. The earth signs, which are Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo, are practical, pragmatic, realistic, useful, dependable, reliable, trustworthy, deliberate, cautious, grounded, solid, stable, physical, tangible, material, substantial, structured, corporeal.
I think it's supposed to be corporeal, and I spelled it wrong. Corporeal, as in like solid, kind of. Sorry.
Okay. Sensual, patient, enduring, persevering, plotting, persistent, resolute, and productive. And sad face, overly conservative, security-oriented, afraid to take risks, opportunistic,
Yes.
stubborn, rigid, unyielding, possessive, narrow-minded, has tunnel vision, obstinate, inflexible, immovable, unchangeable, unbending, unenterprising. And boy, I can sure be a
That was
little.
a real sad face.
Mhm.
All right. We have our air, which is mental, intellectual. Oh, and the signs for air would be Gemini and
Libra and Aquarius.
Aquarius. Thank you. Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
forgot to put them on the sheets, but I have the other sheets. But so we've got intellectual, abstract, rational, logical, which there's another mistake. I will be fixing these errors, guys. Conceptual, theoretical, communicative, social, friendly, gregarious, curious, inquisitive, alert, objective, impersonal, impartial, dispassionate, unbiased, fair, tolerant, unprejudiced, observant, clever, witty, versatile, and mental. Now, the sad face side of that is spacey, ungrounded, intangible, insubstantial, ethereal, meaning like your head is in the clouds too much,
Yeah.
overly intellectual, wordy, verbose, nosy, meddlesome. Like that lady that keeps looking out the window every time you go in and out of the vehicle, or somebody comes to your door, and that person. Gossipy, uncaring, yada, yada, yada. You get the picture.
Uh,
And then we've got water, sissy.
which is feeling. And the water signs are Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. They are nurturing, sustaining, providing, protecting, shielding, feeling, emotional, sensitive, emphatic, compassionate, healing, bonding, merging, unifying, dissolving, impressionable, flowing, receptive, yielding, adaptive, amorphous, changing, psychic, deep, hidden, and mysterious. And the sad face part of that, overprotective, smothering, clinging, needy, over emotional, fearful, insecure, thin skinned, shy, powerless, secretive, deceptive, untruthful, victimized, martyred, and dependent.
Well, all righty. So we get a good picture of what each of those can be.
Most definitely. That's great.
Now, polarities. The polarities have to do with feminine and masculine, or you'll hear it as dark and light, positive and negative, yin and yang, right? Yin and yang.
Right on.
So what element literally feeds the flame of fire and it's necessary for the fire's continued existence?
Air.
That would be air. And if you look further down, they complement each other. Fire and air are both your yang symbols, or yang polarities, which is positive, which is also masculine. The fire signs, as we talked about, were Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius.
Yep.
And air was Libra, Aquarius, and Gemini.
Isn't that awesome? Huh.
It is thought of as exhaling, and the yin, which is the feminine, is inhaling. It takes both actions in order for us to be alive every single moment of every single day, right? You need both actions. We need that polarity. But they believe everything it takes two things. So there can't be just a God, right? The universe wasn't just created by one God. It was the male and female aspect of that God coming together, or the yin yang aspect of that.
Yes.
So, like, for instance, if you planted a seed in the parched earth and wanted an element to nourish that soil, what would correspond with that? Your water signs, right? So let me read the masculine, Sissy, and then if you want to read all of the feminine or the yin.
Okay.
So we've got for the masculine or for the yang, we've got exhale, we've got active, masculine, day force, extroverted, positive, pole of energy, positive pole, electric. That doesn't mean that they are more positive than a female. That's not what that means. It's just two together. Like if you think of a battery, one is the positive end and one is the negative end. Together, the current works. You know what I mean? So it's it's each end of it. So then we've got electric, levity, conscious, logical, individual, outgoing, expressive, left-brained. And left-brained dominant also means your left brain works your right side of your body. So when they say you're left-brained, you're dominant on your right-hand side, but it's also your right-hand side of your body that's the masculine, and the left-hand side of your body is your feminine. So if you want to read the feminine, the yin part.
That's inhale, receptive, feminine, night force, introverted, the negative pole of energy, the magnetic, gravity, instinctive, intuitive, social collective, ingoing, receptive, right-brained, left side of the body.
Huh. Right. So we were kind of talking
really
about this.
Interesting because Liam is a Scorpio and automatic he's left-handed. He does everything with it.
Yes. Yeah.
That's interesting.
You know what? Something that's interesting. Courtney had said the other day that she's ambidextrous. She had told me that she's ambidextrous, which means but her astrological chart is like really, really balanced. I mean, it's like 50-50 masculine, feminine, right? Really balanced.
Yep.
Yes. And she's ambidextrous. You know what? Tyler is ambidextrous. He can use both of his hands.
I use both of my hands, but I still write with my right hand.
Me too. I could write with my left hand if I wanted to and trained myself. I think we all can.
Yeah.
But what I think is really interesting about all that also is that Courtney is a life path 11. She's a Scorpio. Mom is a life path 22, and she was born left-handed and was forced to do right hand. Remember?
Yes.
Yeah, because they thought at that time that was a sign of like witchcraft. So they forced her to be right-handed. But she was a 22 and Courtney's an 11. I wonder if there's some sort of connection in that too. I would be curious to know.
Yeah, something to look into later. Definitely.
Yeah, so your feminine signs are your earth signs and your water signs, which is Capricorn, Taurus, Virgo, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. And then we move on to our modalities. So modalities happen to be, and I'm sure you've heard it before, cardinal, fixed, and mutable signs. People go, well, what does that mean? So this is what this means. There are three different forces. If you're looking at a wheel with spikes or spokes, the outside part of that wheel is the cardinals. The inside part of that wheel is the fixed. It does not, well, we'll let it explain it, but the spokes are the mutable, which is in between both your fixed and your cardinals.
Huh.
So the cardinal signs, I'll start with that if you want to do the fixed signs. So the cardinal signs are, it's a centrifugal radiating energy, which means it's radiating out, okay, expanding out. And they are the ones known for initiating action. It's your Aries, your Cancer, your Libra, and your Capricorn. Those are your cardinal signs. It says that they, when the energy is exaggerated, it would be like choosing too many activities and not completing any. When this energy is deficient, it would be someone that has a lack of drive or initiation or ability to engage in purpose-driven activity. You know, somebody that's just feeling like down in the dumps and just has like no friggin' can never like take the initiative. They've always got to be told what to do. That is somebody that is really poorly aspected as far as a cardinal. And
Gotcha. Yep.
so as you can see down below, I put some
Oh yeah,
keywords
yep,
for each one of the modalities. You see a happy face and a sad face.
yep.
So the ones that are good for the cardinal signs are generating, beginning, doing, initiating, originating, enterprising, active, direct, and purposeful. They are the entrepreneurs they're the leaders, they're the starters. Now, the bad aspects could be starts but doesn't finish. So a lot of unfinished projects, impatient, they're always dissatisfied, they're always looking around the corner for the next best thing if poorly
Aspected, yeah.
Yeah. Overactive, overcommitted, and forceful. So if you want to do the fix, sissy.
Centripetal, radiating energy, stabilizing security. Huh. That's Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. Fixed signs are centripetal, radiating energy, which moves inward towards a center. Natures are to preserve and sustain what was started in the cardinal phase. They are known as the finishers. When overly fixed, they may become rigid, stubborn, and unyielding, thereby making their problems chronic. When deficient, they lack concentration, stamina, and perseverance. So the happy face is concentrating, stabilizing, sustaining, finishing, establishing, persevering, conserving, focused, powerful, constant, persistent, and determined. And negatively aspect is stubborn, rigid, resistant to change, stuck, obsessed, overly retentive, and habit bound.
Right. And then we have our mutable signs, which are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. And they use a spiralic energy, which is started in the cardinal phase, and then it is stabilized in the fixed stage, and then they use that energy to adapt changing conditions of time and space. So they are adapting and learning. They are the ones that are, it's easier for them to go through change. But while it says here, they are great go-between for making contacts and connections. So they're seeing like, oh, you know, they could be like good politicians too, or somebody that's like reaching across the table. If you're thinking like Democrat and Republican, it's somebody that's kind of like in the middle that like helps bring the whole thing together, and their mind can be changed. They're not like so stuck and stubborn on their own perspective that they can't see beyond that. You know what I mean? So they're more flexible individuals. They're adaptable. They actually thrive on change and variety. Now that's when they're overly mutable. They can be high strung. They can be like worrywarts. They can be anxious, and they can be scatterbrained. Deficient may be that they are too rigid, but so rigid that it'll just defeat them. You know what I mean? Because they are normally very changeable. So you get some adversity in there and it can destroy them, at least for a time period. It can like knock them on their ass. So they're known for being distributing, adaptable, flexible, adjustable, connecting, like connecting the dots, linking things together. They're very mental. They're all about learning and change and versatility and dual. Now, badly aspected, they're scattered, unfocused, depleted, dissipated, diffused, distracted, inconsistent, worrisome, and indecisive.
You just described me.
Yeah. And then we've got the last thing, which is the orientations. This one, a lot of people might not have heard of.
Yeah, not. I haven't.
This is like the evolution of the zodiac signs. Okay. It says the 12 signs of the zodiac are also divided further into 3 different orientations. They refer to the 3 stages of relationships between the individual and his or her environment. So you could say it is essentially the evolution. So if you start off with Aries, that is the personal phase. Aries,
Yeah.
Taurus, Gemini, and Cancer, the first 4 of the zodiac in
Yeah, it's like
order.
it's progressive into these. Yeah,
Yeah.
I got. Yeah.
So the first stage, the personal orientation, begins at infancy. It's that time that the newborn is primarily focused on getting personal wants and needs met, like food, clothing, warmth, personal contact, among other things. At this stage, it sees itself at the center of the universe. The whole sole purpose is to assure that it's, its own well-being. So very self-centered, personal. The individuals who are exaggerated, his or her personal orientation becomes selfish and egocentric. If deficient, they experience struggles with just being able to have basic survival skills. So, like, the ego is a necessary thing. We have to have the ego, but it can be overly or not enough. We can't
Right.
completely kill the ego, because if we do, we wouldn't be able to survive in this 3D world. So the next stage,
Interpersonal, which progresses into Leo, Virgo, Libra, and Scorpio. So the second stage is the interpersonal orientation phase. As the child matures, it discovers that other people exist and that they too have legitimate needs. In this interpersonal phase, he or she becomes a social individual and learns to interact with a wide variety of individuals. The overly interpersonal individual may become too other oriented and lose touch with their own sense of self. Without this orientation, a person is denied his or her need for human contact.
So that's like overly and underly. They need it. All of these aspects we all need, but too much can be not good, and too little can be not good. So there's balance in everything, And then the very last one is transpersonal. This is your Sagittarians, your Capricorns, your Aquarians, and your Pisces. The final stage is the transpersonal orientation phase. Finally, towards the end of life, the individual enters the transpersonal stage and seeks to understand his or her relationship with the universe at large, so the bigger picture people. Ultimately, he or she must accept his or her own physical mortality and find a spiritual connection to the infinite. The person with an emphasis on the transpersonal signs may feel totally out of place in the mundane world, so concerned with discovering the meaning of life that practical matters get neglected, which I do find myself doing that sometimes. I am too focused on learning this that I don't do the laundry, that I don't do the meals.
Right.
Now, without this emphasis, though, experience no connection to the whole and thus lack a spiritual perspective towards life. Me, I am definitely overly aspected in this area, because everything I do, eat, breathe, and sleep is all about, what does it mean? What is the spiritual meaning of this? I am a seeker. So,
for sure,
that is everything.
That's awesome. You did a great job on these.
It gives a little bit more perspective. We're going over this really, really quickly, but these worksheets are going to help you. Like I've said, hopefully you guys at this point are getting like a 3-ring binder or something, a regular folder or something, and putting these in order, because this is how we are learning. Start off with your basics so you understand everything. So next week, Sissy, give me an idea. What do you want to know about?
Uh, I'm not sure. I was just thinking week one was about the houses and what was in the houses, but did we go over what each house represents?
We did briefly. Let's see.
So why don't we go with like with say starting with the first house, what it means to have each sign in that house.
Okay.
So that would be like 12 weeks worth. I'm just throwing something out there. Maybe do more than one house at a time. I don't know.
Yeah, we can do the houses if you want. I do know that I got an email from one of our members. She wants to know, Amy, or she sent me information about like the North Node and the South Node.
Ooh.
And yeah, and that was something I was going to get to later on because those are like expanded things. But
yeah, and the Chiron, that's interesting.
Yes, and the other asteroids and like Lilith and all that.
Yeah.
But you know what? Why don't we focus on the houses next week? And we will focus on the North and South Node if we have time. If we don't have time, then the following week we will focus primarily on North and South Node and what it means to have the North and South Node in any particular house, how that affects people. Because here within a few weeks, I want to be able to start dissecting people's astrological charts. And, but I do think we should at some point talk about, like, for instance, what does the sun sign mean? So like 1 week, all we're focusing on is what the sun sign means and not just like what the sun, how it's aspected, but what it really means for you, what your sun sign is. Do you see what I mean? And then the next one, how is the moon aspected? And then go through and talk about, well, if your sun sign is in this, then this is how you are. Or these are some of your characteristics. These can be the good and the bad characteristics. Because eventually, once we go past that, and then we go to moon, and then we go to rising. What does the rising mean? What does the moon mean? What does it mean if this house is in Saturn, or this, if Saturn is in this house? I want to get more specific about every single part of it. You know what I mean?
Have a question.
Okay.
Are decants a part of Western astrology, or is that just the tropical Western?
Well, I think tropical is Western.
Tropical is Western. It is. But I think, isn't it a little bit,
I think there's different kinds of houses that you can do in Western, I believe. I don't really know that too well. When somebody says Western, I just automatically think, okay, you're tropical. Just like sidereal is more Vedic, but with maybe some of the characteristics of
right. Yeah, because what I noticed about the tropical was that, like, remember I told you before, my sun sign is Libra in Western, and right. So it's Libra in tropical, but I'm aspected by my ascendant, which is Virgo, by the planet that rules Virgo, which is Mercury. So I'm like, I have more qualities of that, that is projected in my, like, would be my sun sign. So I guess it's like, is that Vedic?
That is Vedic. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, they have similarities, I think. They just word it differently? Because it kind of works out the same.
I mean, I suppose. I don't know. I think sidereal is more like the using the Western like philosophies and meanings and all that, but using the actual stars that are
calculations are different.
Right. Well, it would be different because the difference between Vedic astrology, other than a few things, like they have very much about the moon and the lunar cycles.
Right.
They're called, the moon mansions or lunar mansions. And nakshatras is what they're called. So they have that. However, the Western astrology was based on a system that was done, over 2,000 years ago, based on where the stars were. It's based on, that's why they say tropical. It's based on the seasons. That's why it's called tropical, because it's based on the seasons. But one of the things that I have issues with going forward, for me personally, that I have discovered for where I live, and that's how astrology works. It's calculated from where you are on the earth, what the degree is. So it's everyone's viewpoint. It's just a system like anything else. Somebody set it up on this or that or whatever. Okay. But it's based on location. So what my stars are, even if I was born at the exact same time as somebody else that is across the world, their astrology is going to be different than mine, even though it's exactly the same time. But the wheel of the year, tropical, Western, is based off of like a fixed tropical system, a seasonal system. Now, for you and me, we live in Michigan. When March 21st comes around, which is supposed to be the very first sign, which is Aries, does that feel like the very first of spring to you, or does that still feel like we're in the middle of winter?
It's winter.
Exactly. It is exactly right. So the Western does not work for us. It does not work for me anymore because that's not when my spring is.
That's a pretty good.
And astrology was started for using it in order to see when is the Nile going to flood? When is the best time for planting my crops? When is the best time for harvesting and preparing for winter? You see what I mean?
Oh, I do.
So that's why it was used.
Huh. I will tell you too, with these sheets that you've compiled over these 4 weeks, that even without a like a paragraph describing each sign, you can use these worksheets pretty much to describe each sign. Especially, I mean, now you got the fixed, the mutable. They have an air, earth, fire, water, in each one. So right there makes them different, even though they're still fixed or mutable.
Exactly. Well, see, that's the whole thing about showing all of these things. That one of the things that we talk about all the time is, well, if you're a Sagittarius, this is what you're like. If you are a Taurus, this is what you're like. If you are a fire sign, then you must be fiery and aggressive. And that's wrong. That's not accurate, because we don't just have all fire signs are the same. They're not. Each one has a different modality. One might be they're all masculine, but one might be, what was the other thing? In a different phase. So like, for instance, somebody that is fixed cardinal, because you see there's one fire sign that's cardinal, there's one fire sign that's fixed, there's one fire sign that's mutable, right?
Yeah.
So not all fire signs are stubborn.
Right.
Which Sagittarius.
And
not all fire signs are aggressive.
was also used for psychology. And I can see now also, because when you're negatively aspected, you can see, like, say somebody was mistreated as a child, and so those negative aspects come out, and that's probably how they're going to come out. I mean, that's just
Exactly. And then you have your, let's say, fire signs again, that is your Aries. Okay. That one's personal. That one's based on like yourself. Then you have the second one, which is Leo, which is interpersonal. So they're at a different phase. They're not all about me. They're more about helping other people. And then you go on to the Sagittarius, which is more about the bigger picture, more about spiritual. So their fire and their passion is based on the bigger picture kind of stuff. It's not necessarily about all about money.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's why all of these fundamental things, learning these fundamental things are important, because not every water sign is the same. Not all air signs are the same.
Yep.
Nah, we're complex. There's more to it than that. So
very good, sis. Very good. I'm very impressed.
Well, thank you. But this is why I think it's important to be learning with people that are learning, because I am passionate about learning as I go. And these are the things that I'm asking. So I know, being new to it, the next person that I'm trying to turn around and teach, I know what to add, because I can already kind of think of what they're going to ask. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes.
Because I'm right there with them.
Yep.
So, yeah. All right. So we went a little bit over tonight, but so next week we will be talking about the houses. And if we have time, we will touch on the north and south node. If we don't have time, then we will do the north and south node next, because the north and south node, it doesn't really matter what system. It could be, if you're in Vedic, it would be your Rahu and your Ketu, but they essentially mean the same things. So we'll touch on that next week, or well, maybe next week if we have time.
Sounds good.
Someone's got the hiccups.
I get them all the time.
All right. Well,
never hide from anybody, because they.
Yep, there she is. She's behind me, trying to sneak up behind me. There she is. So I want to say thank you to everybody who will be watching this later. Because it's just you and me right now, sis. But I don't have a problem with that. Even if they're not watching this, but they're finding, the worksheets useful, and it's helping them, eventually I also want to go on to the tarot and the associations with, astrology and all that good stuff. Yep. It's all going to be part of this. So
that's excellent.
Astrology is a huge topic.
Oh,
and I want to keep these chats really where it's not about whether or not you're Western or Vedic or whatever it is. These are just the fundamental basics so that you can expand on it. Right.
Perfect.
All right. Well, I will see you next Thursday. I'm sure we'll talk before that, but I love you and thank you for doing this with me.
Love
and you. For anyone watching this later, we love you and have a good evening.
Bye.